Bikepacking. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. The intentional act of bypassing typical definitions of the term vacation. A commitment to the concept of self-powered long-distance travel. Entrenching yourself deep inside ever-changing locales to the point that you eat, sleep, and become one with them. Ticking away mile after mile as the terrain and landscape inevitably morph into another fresh visage. You wear the dirt of your surroundings, inhale the fauna, and immerse yourself into dissimilar nature. Connecting off-road escapes via community paths while fully laden. Hobos in a way, or at least highly ambitious vagabonds with a bike full of gear as opposed to the old bag on a stick. Occasionally, we pass parents with a youngster winding out their cranks, trying their best to keep up with you. You tell that youth, "Keep riding bikes, kid. They will take you everywhere." You're sincere because you know it's true. This has been your life. I first took serious the thought of doing this challenge after finishing PA top to bottom in October 2023. I started training in earnest July 2024. This preparation was a balancing act between training, raising teens, assisting parents, and owning a business. Truth is, sometimes it was all too much. I'm also 51, brimming with the usual aches and pains. A few months ago, before the race, I happened to crack my tailbone at work. All this on top of my ever-present pinched nerve ice-picking my shoulder. Be aware, people, the challenges of bikepacking start well before the initial crank of the pedal at the start. A tenacious stance is recommended well in advance to even get your ass to the jump-off point. Without the mindset of obstacles are what you see when you take your mind off the goal, it's going to be difficult to defy the logical internal query of why are you doing this shit when you really don't have to. I am not immune to this internal battle. Nor is my compadre, Dave Fox, who is re-entering the Bike Pack Challenge arena saddled with a crunchy knee that has hobbled his chances of completing the route before it even starts. Dave and I have been friends since the 90s, and we have lived our formidable years side by side. We are different breeds of riders by circumstance and by personality. This is why we had some conversations about allowing each other to ride their ride. It's time to mention positive energy. Tuesday before the Saturday morning race, Dave and I drove straight from Philly to the Florida Panhandle. Dave was working a guest appearance at Full Hearts Tattoo Collective in Fort Walton Beach. As Dave tatted, it was time for me to do my own thing, which began with a ride to the white sand beach and dip my legs into the calm, warm waters of the Gulf. I then took off to see family in Baton Rouge. The vibes were already flowing in the right direction this whole trip, and when Cousin Jeannie busted out a king cake, I bit into a purple slice to find the little baby. I just knew things were going my way. I then buzzed around LSU and Baton Rouge, getting that fix of my tires rolling across new terrain. Between the beach and the Mississippi River, I was just stacking good energy upon good energy. I returned to Fort Walton Beach and picked up Dave. Then we were off to Shangri-La Campground in Ocala, Florida. After setting up, we enjoyed Carlos's gracious pizza party under the pavilion. Dave and I peeped at all the bikes and chatted with some riders who have done the Huracan before and others who have not. Filled with nervous excitement, we did our best to sleep. Tomorrow is a day we've been working towards for a long time, and it all begins at 8 a.m. with the grand depart. Morning came and we emerged from our tents to pack up and ready our bikes. Having an official start time was a nerve-wracking first for us. During the final tightening of straps and snapping of buckles, a fellow rider moseyed on over and chatted us up. This dude just brought some down-home Florida good energy, which offset a lot of the nerves.
First in the woods. If you don't know the routine for the line start, just follow the person in front of you.
Dave and I went to the start line, and once Carlos announced, "May the trail be with you," we took off amongst the grand depart of riders. We all funneled into a single-track path layered with pine needles, creating a forgiving and supple terrain. We were all links in a long chain of riders meandering through the woods. The bike train ultimately thinned out, and I lost sight of Dave for a second as he crested a short hill. Not even 20 miles in, and I already lost Dave. The GPS showed a tangly ball of spaghetti as I approached another rider's wheel. My new trail buddy was Tyler from Greensboro, and we made fast friends. We buzzed along chatting and sharing our stories underneath the pine tree canopy of the Santos trails. Eventually I did lose him when I stopped to refill my water bottle, but I knew I would see him again. It was time to enter the Marshall Swamp, and now this was Florida. In PA we have some pine tree covered trails, but no swamps like this. The terrain changed into a few inches of mud, forcing a bit of drifting here and there. The scene was flush with green fronds set upon dark swamp water on both sides. The new, unfamiliar nature fueled the positive vibes that were coursing through my veins. At approximately 35 miles, I exited the swamp to see a cluster of riders snacking and adjusting their bags. One of them was Dave. We couldn't comprehend how we split up, but now reunited, that's all that mattered. Although I did get a taste of solo riding, and something about it felt right. We hopped on our steeds and began pedaling down a paved road. So did a few others. One of them was the chill dude that stopped to talk before the race.
All right, who are you?
Mike Beaton, from Lakeland, Florida.
How old?
55.
Why are you doing this crazy thing?
I have no idea.
Chiefs or Eagles?
Definitely Eagles.
My man.
Also joined in the mix was Sam, a young buck from Venice, Florida.
Name is Sam Joinson.
How old are you?
I'm 29 years old.
From?
I'm from Venice, Florida on the Gulf Coast.
Why'd you do this crazy thing?
Wanted to have some fun. Wanted to go on an adventure. Wanted to see if I could bike more than 100 miles a day and meet up with some pretty cool people and have a good time.
So yeah, we met you.
Glad I met you too, man.
Eagles or Chiefs?
Eagles! Go Birds!
There you go.
There was Todd, who I actually rode a bit with in Marshall Swamp.
Auburn, Alabama, 51 years old. I like backpacking and I like cycling, so I figured why not go bikepacking. What else?
Chiefs or Eagles?
Eagles.
My man.
And the fourth was Chris, who turned out to be a super easygoing and determined rider.
I'm Chris St. Clair, 51. I live in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Just thought this would be a good idea. Sitting on my couch, seemed like a good plan. And I don't know who the Chiefs or Eagles are.
It was now 6 riders hailing from different parts of America with different riding experiences, varying riding styles, and diverse knowledge united by the same goal, finishing the Huracan 300. Here in the early stages of the journey, joining forces was a comfort to us all. Our crew continued on now strung out with different levels of tiredness until we happened upon a weird and not so easy to figure out single track. Something was amiss. The path just seemed confusing, and within a couple miles we collectively realized we were on the damn ghost trail. The only way out now was to complete it. Momentarily bummed, we all banded together to crack jokes, self-deprecate, and curse out Carlos. Eventually we made it out, some of us barely. Mike and Todd were out of water. Dave's knee was acting up, and we were all getting real hungry. This is where Chris's strength first shined by helping Mike through this difficult time. I'll let them tell it.
That I would have never made it through day one without him. I mean, he mother hen me big time because.
So I saw it in him, and I knew there's, you just got to pause and you just got to take the time. So we did. I could tell it was crucial that we had to get some water, whatever that looked like.
Well, we were depending on that one well, and as I always say, bike packing rule number 4081, don't ever expect anything to actually be there, even though it says it. And the well was dry.
Yeah, and I could see his reaction.
And that water pump being broken and me being completely out of water. And he just stayed with me, man. He really did. And I wouldn't have made it through day one. I probably would have called a relative from Ocala to come get me or something, because at that point I was really struggling. And he's like, "No, man, we got you. We're gonna make it." And we found those 2 trail angels on the side of the road that had water. And
there was a couple there, this Canadian couple who were boondocking, who were super friendly from the get-go,
and refilled all 3 of our water bottles, all 3 of mine and 3 of Chris's.
And I knew we'd be all right at that point. We're just going to take a little time to recover. But again, you think about, well, what else do you have to do? There's nothing.
Yeah.
Just take care of yourself, right? If you can move forward, you can. If moving forward means recovering, then that's what you do. And so it didn't take long after that where I could just see his chin kind of picked up a little bit again. And
did take a pretty strong puke though, so I'm not gonna lie about that. So
and then he threw up twice, I think, and then he said to me immediately, "I feel so much better."
Yeah.
Sam and I made it to Shockley Heights desperately in need of calories. I tried to unclip from my pedals only to fall over in front of all the resting riders. As we filled up on junk food, we easily decided none of us could make it to Carlos's Samurai camp at the 114-mile mark. With dust setting in, it was just way too much. The crew staggered forth to the nearby Alexandria Springs campground. Chris and I schmoozed the camp host into allowing us to stay on their extra site. The dream of doing this in 4 days was stunted, but not officially over. We unintentional ghost riders, as we christened ourselves, pitched tents and bedded down for the night. One by one, fellow riders converged upon the encampment to do the same. I dozed off, pleased as could be, and ready for more.
The unintentional ghost crew is off for day 2. Say hi, everyone. Woo! Hell yeah. Woo! Ghost crew day 2.
I set my alarm for 5 a.m. so I could break camp to get moving at sunrise. Locked in on doing this thing in 4 days, I figured it was the best move. One of the components that made this crew special was that each member was cognizant of the unspoken courtesy of allowing others to go about their own pace. Meaning, some were driven to get moving, but no one pushed their schedule on anybody. Conversely, nobody was playing tiddlywinks as if we had nowhere to go. We all found a common stride due to a perfect balance of personalities. Cheesing ear to ear, the accidental ghost riders began the next phase of miles. Todd, Sam, and I were together in the front, just grinding away. Mike mingled amongst us all, moving from the front, back, and middle of the stretched out pack. Chris took opportunities to get to know each of us with some side-by-side banter. Time passed quickly, learning each other's lore. Stories about Todd's local riding spots in Alabama, or Sam's wife, who rode a small boat across both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Mike owns a Ford dealership group in Lakeland. This enabled him and I to talk shop since I used to be in the same business. Chris was super interesting, becoming a recently retired teacher, a former collegiate rugby player, as well as a strongman competitor. Me, I did what I always do, talk about sports. This trip, mainly the Eagles, and how we were going to win the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Dave is filled with tales from touring the world, from tattooing, BMX, and metal bands. This being the Huracan 300, it wasn't all fun and games though. Dave's knee was definitely an issue as he vacillated from struggling on the road and coming alive when we switched to the trail. Entering the challenge trail, it was I who started struggling, not physically, but mentally. I mean, this trail was, to me, way worse than the ghost trail. The fauna was higher and sharper, the trail was barely visible, and the terrain was spongy mud.
This is the famous Huracan 300. Very, very rideable, as we can see here.
Increasing my frustration, my spare battery wouldn't charge my phone. This was unnerving as I depended so much on my phone for navigation, pictures for this film, and my lifeline to family back home. Chris noticed me started to freak, and his calming nature saved me from throwing my tech off into the woods somewhere. I decided that I would investigate once we stopped for the night, but I was neurotic for the rest of the day. We rode and biked for considerable miles over swampy ground, scraping against sharp fronds and slogging over cypress knees, yearning for a change. The challenge trail eventually ended, and that variation we were looking for was in our sights. We were closing in on one of the most anticipated thrills of the trip, the river crossing at Buck Camp. Dave and I have been talking about this moment for months. We located the entrance to the river smoothly and scouted a strategy. Mike, being born and raised in Florida, volunteered to enter first since he doesn't mind gators. Sam and Todd followed and made successful portages. When my turn came, I took like 4 steps and sunk into the mud immediately, almost dumping everything. Thankfully, I maintained my balance and waded into the refreshing, perfect temperature river. The water was clear and, as far as I could tell, free of gators and water moccasin. Dave and Chris then crossed successfully as well. We all then dipped fully underwater in some sort of baptismic ritual, becoming reborn as true Huracan warriors. The energy was significant as our bodies and souls were cleansed. We did it. We crossed the river, and that was a big deal to all of us. Solo would have been cool, but as a group it was epic. Now we all share this crazy moment for the rest of our lives. Thanks, Carlos. Dave's knee was revitalized from the cold dip, and the smile on his face as we rode had us all feeling exceptional. At this point, it was off to the civilization of Apopka, where choices were to be made. Mike found a hotel in Apopka, which didn't take much convincing for Dave, Chris, and Todd to hop on board with that idea. Sam was ready to continue on, and I was torn. A hotel provides a shower and a comfy bed, plus the added temptation of going out to grab Mexican food. This is the push-pull that these challenges create in your head. How hard do you want to go? How uncomfortable do you want to be? I decided to take comfort, ending the day at 65 miles, subsequently making the 4-day goal unrealistic at this point. I rationalized by telling myself, what's another day really? This is some burly shit. You're 51. What you've done is badass enough. Plus, you're with a great group of dudes. It'll be fun. But the definition of fun is a relative term, isn't it? We get to the hotel, and I cleaned the port to my phone, and lo and behold, it started charging. That alone was a monumental mental lift. We got showers while Mike arranged an Uber to drive us to a nearby Mexican restaurant. I ordered a virgin daiquiri. Now this is vacation. We scarfed down actual meals and Dot watched Sam going for it. I feel a pang of jealousy. That should be me. I turn to my burrito, and the envy diminishes quickly. The guys discuss the plan to get us to the end. 65 miles tomorrow, we can stop and eat at a brewery. 65 again the next day, and Mike's wife will drop some goodies for us halfway through the green swamp. I start twitching. My mind is struggling with all this. So will I ever even get to do a century on this trip? Will the 5 days turn into 6 days? I kind of like pushing my limits. I'm dragging the exact amount of food in a cook kit this whole way. I don't need to stop for big meals. The real zinger was party pacing is not what I trained for. All this is going against the grain of who I am. I came down here locked in. I'm one determined mofo. I trained for this. I have family and friends at home dot watching and rooting for me to do this in my 4-day goal. I'm an example to my kids and my brothers and my friends. I can do this. I know I can. I'm a grinder. Have been all my life. Christ, it's even tattooed on my hand and patched onto the back of my riding shirt. We head back to the hotel. Internally, I am spinning as I lay down in my existential bike crisis. I then decide to check the track leaders. Noticing now we are in back of the pack, I'm absolutely gutted. I'm hella competitive, but this has nothing to do with the other riders. To quote Joe Strummer, input equals output. Right now, this was not the case. I put so much into this, an incredible amount of work and sacrifice. I didn't ride 3 days in the pouring rain from Philly to State College for this comfy bed. I didn't risk frostbite while on training rides in 10-degree weather for a warm shower. I didn't give up volunteering at my Little League to be back of the pack drinking a goddamn strawberry daiquiri. As I laid my head to pillow, it was clear what I needed to do. Dave knew it too. He could tell. I could feel it. I closed my eyes in comfort, fully embracing the fact that starting tomorrow it's going to get a hell of a lot more uncomfortable, and I can't fucking wait. "5 steps is all it took, and Dave's knee just crunched. He was done. It was completely understandable, and more than anything, we were both bummed he didn't get a chance to see a gator yet. We sauntered down to Continental Breakfast, and I scooped up oranges, bananas, began slathering bagels with cream cheese, basically snatching as much free food as I could fit. I wasn't planning on getting off my bike for quite a while. Upon telling the gang I was splitting, Chris looked directly in my eyes and said, "Go. You got this."
Rock and roll, brother. Yeah, man.
I took off like a rocket, and I was so full of dumb energy I immediately took a wrong turn while trying to find my way back to the route.
See you later, Alabama.
See you, man.
What's up, dude?
Just living life. How are you doing?
I'm great. What was the main reason why you took off?
In my mind, I had this goal of 4 days, or finishing within 4 days. I was like, well, on one hand, I could hang with the group and have a really fun time and just like keep bonding and have a great time and do it in like I think it was 5 days we were planning. Or I was like, I could stick to my original goal and try to push myself a little bit and see if I can like kind of break out and do it. Because I really wanted to do the 4 days, knowing that it was like mostly forest roads or even just like normal roads. I was like, well, if I break down, I can always just sleep on the side of the road. So that kind of eased the uncertainty around it.
Did you feel faster? Did you feel more like yourself when you were on your own?
That's so interesting you say that. I felt really empowered, right? I was like, oh, I'm crushing this. I'm doing really well. I was holding a really fast pace. And then I got to Lake Apopka. When I did that at night, I only had one light on at night. So when you're on that gravel path, it could only see the gravel path. It didn't see to the left or right. So I was like, oh, I'm curious what's off on the left here. And I looked to the right and saw some trees. I'm like, oh, cool. And I looked to the left, and I'm not kidding you. It must have been like 10 pairs of yellow eyes just looking right back at me. And just, you see the backs a little bit coming out of the water. And that freaked me out a little bit because I was thinking, if I get a flat, they're 3 feet to the left of me, right? Because that bank is only a foot up from the water, the swamp.
Yep.
I saw you that day. I felt, and let me tell you, I got to give you some props on this because it was so funny because you left, what, an hour before us, 45 minutes before us, something like that.
I don't know how I got that lost, but I did.
And then we're all sitting there talking, trying to, just regroup it a little bit. And all of a sudden, Bebop, and here you come behind us. We all look at each other. We're like, what the hell's Sean doing? And you didn't miss a beat. That was the best part because I probably would have been frustrated as hell. I'm like, oh man, I've been riding for an hour. Don't know what you did. You were like, nope, I'm good. I'm just must have taken a wrong turn, and you just zipped on. You're good. You were smiling at it. A lot of people would have taken that a lot worse to have throw in, knowing you're going to do 150 miles and to throw in an extra hour basically.
Yeah.
Could have been frustrating for some people, but you just zipped it up. We all talked about it when you left. We're like, dude, he didn't even care. It was like he was just gone.
Yeah, I just wanted to ride that damn bike and go as far as I could. And
Entering Lake Apopka, animals appeared immediately from every angle. Not even a mile from the entrance, there lay the biggest gator I've ever seen. This reptile was huge and laying smack across the bike path. I swear to you, I had to scooch within 3 feet of his snout in order to get around him. I was thrilled knowing that Dave was going to see this dinosaur.
I was so scared that Dave was going to do that ride and those damn gators weren't going to be out for him. Mm-hmm. And we get there, and that was not the case. I'm born and raised in Florida, and that's probably the most alligators over 10 foot I'd ever seen. I mean, there were monster alligators. And people say what they want. A 10-foot plus alligator is a big alligator.
And I have not reached out to David yet, but I will. And I just wanted to say you were very smart coming out with us that morning. I mean, the ride on Lake Apopka, what we saw 24 big alligator. It was perfect. Well, there wasn't.
Especially when you're from Philly and you don't even see a turtle, let alone an alligator. I mean, it was.
The lake to my left was filled with birds and gators. Big ones, small ones, basking ones, swimming ones. This natural habitat was exhilarating. Cruising along solo at peace with my decision, I peeled my oranges and bananas while riding exactly how I trained to do all summer. My only stops were to refill my accessible water bottle. Continuing out from the lake, I was approaching the hilliest roads in all of Florida, aka the Florida Pyrenees.
You did the Pyrenees, day 3?
Yes. Yep.
You said to me, "Wait till you see them; they're going to be straight up in your face." And
Yep.
were that was a challenge.
It was.
That was a challenge.
Yep. That'll get you after you do. I think there was 10 different ascents we had to do.
And we all said, super smart of Dave not to ride up these stupid hills.
So for me, training at 70 feet per mile up here in Philadelphia area, I was like, how bad can they be? They were bad,
Yeah.
after doing all those miles. And then I look at this freaking road going straight up in the air. I'm like, okay. And it took a lot out of me. It took all my mental fortitude to kind of deal with them. The bad news is that I didn't know when they're going to stop. And the good news is I didn't know when they're going to stop, So
Yeah.
kind of took it as each hill came. And let me ask you one more question about solo riding. Less information was better for me. The Pyrenees, I didn't know when they were going to start or when they were going to end. If I was with anybody who knew, I think that's almost more detrimental to my type of riding because I was just, because then you start doing the math, you start thinking. Do you have that similar problem or thought process?
I think so, yeah. I think you're right with that. Like on one hand, when you know what's in front of you, you can kind of calculate it to the end. And if it's not too far out, you can just kind of like push through there. But then the benefit of not knowing is you can kind of zone out, like listen to your music, listen to a podcast, do whatever you need. And then you look up and it's like, oh, I've cranked out like 25 miles. That feels really good. I don't have a great answer, but I think it depends on my mood, right? Like if I'm feeling really good, like that night, the night I left you guys, I felt really great that second night. I had like just like a huge like adrenaline push. I didn't need to know anything that was in front of me. I was going to crunch through it. I was going fast. I was pedaling.
Truthfully, the only thing bothering me was my scraping loud-ass drivetrain. The sand, mud, and swamp water repeatedly coating my drivetrain had each pedal stroke sounding like a train screeching to a stop. Remembering Chris mentioned the shop on route in Claremont, I planned on asking to service my rig.
Now that is a clean drivetrain. Thank you. Thank you, Carl and Anthony, teaching me how to tune up a bike. So where'd you end up on day 3?
I think the Willow Tree Campground, which was a good place. I mean, honestly, that was kind of a good middle place. It was right at 200 miles. And the setup was good there as far as the room they had and everything. Todd almost got ran over by a hog. I don't know did you hear that?
No.
So that was a cool part. So we're coming up and, we get right to it, and this 200-pound boar hog runs out of that trail and runs right in front of Todd. Probably misses him by like 4 to 6 feet at the most. It was pretty funny, and he's looked at us. We all looked at each other like, "Did that just happen?" So it was right at dark, so it made it really cool. It was kind of a neat thing. We all looked at each other like, "Well, damn."
That is so funny.
But also, when I got to Claremont, it was night. So it was that night. It was the night before. And Sun Creek, the brewing had shut down. Everything was shut down. And my goal was like, just get it. So the owner's house was like Victoria and Eric. And I was like, just get to Victoria and Eric's house, right? Mm-hmm. And thankfully, their house was like literally right on the path. Like you're going down.
I think I'm about 75 miles in. I'm feeling good. Hot. Hydrating. First goal was about 140, 150 miles. Second goal, 200 miles. Third goal, 240 miles. I don't even know if any of this makes sense. I just want to ride the bike, and I don't want to stop.
I passed a Publix market in which I recall Chris saying was the last place for food until you get through the green swamp. I zoomed past, committing to just me and what I had on my rig until I got to the other side. The road riding was damn hot as I approached the Van Ness trailhead. At approximately 5 p.m., I figured it was the perfect time for a coffee stop. A few strangers stopped by. One gave me sunflower seeds, and another I handed some scratch gels. Trail karma given and received.
The green swamp it crushed me.
Start doing the green swamp. It starts off pretty easy, like pretty flat. You're just crunching out miles. I got to around like 25 or 30, and then my body just started like falling off. Like I was hot. I had to take
It was hot.
Well, for us, it was really hot. I think the real feel the day we went to the swamp was 91. So it was hot.
I was not ready for 90 plus degree temps, no shade. And as you remember, there were no distractions. You were basically just riding
out, pushing your bike through sand.
Yeah.
I always tell people Florida riding sneaks up on you. And, you know, obviously me being born and raised here, because if you're doing a lot of climbs and stuff, you can pedal, but then you can coast. With the swamp, no, you're pedaling every foot of every minute of that trail. Pretty much.
Pushing sand through sand.
Or pushing in the sand.
And then finally I got through a point where I was like, I need to eat like a lot of food. So I sat down. I was like, I'm going to take a nice break. And about probably a third to a half of the way through the swamp at this point. And I was kind of at that point, like missing company.
Swamp.
Yeah, we did like 70 something miles that day, all through the swamp.
Yeah, it was not fun. You know, food didn't taste good. Water didn't taste good. By the end of that day, I was tired of having to eat. You know, I was forcing myself to consume calories because otherwise you're just not going to keep able to do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's 30 minutes from my house. So,
wow.
So I had ridden a lot of that East Swamp stuff just on my own. So a lot of those trails I'd ridden. Now there's a couple that Carlos added in that were a little bit of the tougher ones that I wouldn't have chose to ride if I'm just going there to play around and have fun on my rides. But I like the swamp part of it. I really did. To me, that's gravel riding. So it was, especially if I wouldn't have been on a 50-pound pack bike, I think that would have been an awesome part. Now, don't get me wrong, the west side, the sand that you ended up walking a ton of, and then you got swampy. You know, now I would never ride that road again.
I mean, when I was forced to walk, I'm walking across literal, you know, it's sand and everything, and it's like you're just looking for a place to put your bike, your feet, and there's never really a spot, you know.
That did become. Thankfully, it became comically ridiculous.
Yeah,
and we pushed through this big sand pit it was kind of long, and he was just letting it rip. He was not a happy camper. I was just laughing. I mean, we were just kind of laughing at ourselves.
And then finally, I get to Meg's hole, and I get there. I'm like, great. I'm like, oh, at least there's two guys here that are about to do it.
Okay.
I was like, howdy, how you guys doing? Like, oh, we're good, blah, blah, blah. And they seem to be nice and friendly. And like, yeah, we should. I was like, oh, cross it together. They're like, yeah.
And then the water, and we're like, oh, you know, let's look left or right, you know. And Mike's like, nah. And he just took his shoes off and just started walking right through. He's like, I
throw it.
It was so funny. We get to that, and you know, I'm a Florida guy, so honestly, I'm not really scared of alligators. I mean, I'm scared if one's going to try to attack me, but as far as if I see one, I'm like, whatever. It's. I mean, I'm born and raised with them. I see them every day, and them guys are looking at that swamp. They're like, I think alligators are going to be in here. I'm like, dude, I just shucked my shoes and socks off at that point. It was pretty late in the day, and I'd already walked through all that sand and was a little fired up about having that big sand section. So I'm like, fellas, I'm going, and I just peeled them off and went. And then I look back, and they're like, all right, well, if he went, I'm going to go. So
if he's not getting eaten, we won't get eaten.
So we ripped on through that. I think all of
we can't. And he's like, we're too close. We're spending more time trying to think. He's like, this one, we're just going to muscle through. And we did.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, you guys camping at, I think it was Silver Tree. And they're like, no, we're actually going to try to do through the night, 10 miles on, 10-minute nap, 10 miles on, 10-minute nap. And they were like, you want to join me? Join us? I was like, huh, interesting. I'm like, that might carry me through instead of sleeping. And I was like, yeah, screw it. Let's give it a try. I stuck with them at that point, and they were two really cool dudes. They were firefighter paramedics from Seminole County, which is like...
Into the wilderness I go, passing some row-ins and hopping series of fences like a kid fleeing from the cops. The road was hard-packed dirt and the sun was starting to set, taming the hot, humid atmosphere. I was feeling okay until I stared up at the clouds and they started dilating. I then realized I was beginning to bonk. I've been through this before. It's time to hydrate, time to snack, but not time to stop. I pulled out the bag of Swedish fish I've been hauling since day one, started a system of water intake followed by sunflower seeds, then a few Swedish fish. I repeated these steps over and over again as dusk waned into night. By the time I flicked my headlight on, the bonk was successfully staved off. I was back, strong as can be, just in time for the real adventure to begin.
Without further ado, let me tell you the adventure of the Green Swamp for the Philly boy.
Yeah.
So day 3, which is where you and I start flip-flopping a little bit, I ended up doing 156 miles that day.
That's where you caught up. Wow.
That's where I caught up. And let me tell you, I was going to do... My goal when I left there was to break my record. My longest ride was 120 miles. I wanted to break that record. After entering the Green Swamp, I start the bonk a little bit. I'm like 75, 80 miles in. I work my way through a bonk, which only energizes you. It's crazy how, you feel, to use your word, empowered. And I rode on into the night, and I decided, I was like, I'm going to hit I'm going to do what I always wanted to do. I'm going to ride for 24 hours straight. That's how good I felt.
Yeah.
Hard packed Jeep roads. As you said, it got cooler, so I just was getting more energized. My boy Robin, who I do a lot of bike packing trips with, he knows that I start energizing around 5 p.m. So that's like my time where I train back here. Mentally, I was locked in. So I'm going through the Green Swamp. Now it gets dark. I was ready to go 24 hours. In fact, it was nighttime. It was dark. I was so turned around. I was shining my light. It was so hard to find the little teeny trails and everything. Sometimes you're not on these Jeep roads. Sometimes you got to go basically bushwhack to find these paths.
Yeah, there was a section, wasn't there?
Yeah, like I got onto a road and I had to turn back off. And I mean, there was times where I spun around in a circle with my light like 6 times looking for a path that I couldn't find. And I just had to kind of deduce it by my navigation blipping, going, hey, wrong path. If I wasn't so focused, that would have been unnerving, but I was just having a ball. Like, I'll find it, And then also there was the whole like, well, what the hell else am I going to do? I'm in the middle of this freaking swamp. I have no other choice. I have to just keep going. The Boy Scout camp was very difficult. I don't know when you were like near the Boy Scout camp and stuff like that, like trails and everything.
Oh my gosh, was that the camp where it was like the Bigfoot decommission camp?
Yeah, it was like, where is this trail at?
Oh yeah, it just pops into a little clearing, and it's like, and you're like, where the f am I? And it's just like that way, and it's just you were doing that at night.
I was at night. Primarily the Green Swamp. And somehow, basically by reducing my navigation, and then like I see these palmettos, and I'm like, oh, there's a path there. And thankfully, they have flashes on the trees. So I got my way through that, and then it got really like those ATV roads. They were sandy and this and that, and I'm pushing, I'm riding, I'm pushing, I'm riding. Still determined.
The ideal temperature of this Florida night kept me comfortable and alert. I could hear rustling to the left and rummaging to the right, yet never spotted any animals. My nose picked up the smell of burnt wood and ashes. I would see in the distance what looked like a campfire, only to be fooled by a smoldering log left over from a controlled burn. The whole experience felt like I was roaming through the aftermath of some absurd, dystopian jungle battle.
I'm going to keep on going. I'm going all night. Into the morning, maybe. I'm going to keep it safe. I got this. I'm so fucking happy. And then I look, my GPS or the navigation shows Meg's Hole. Then I got to Meg's Hole, was like big watering. You know, I saw my navigation. There's like a water crossing. I was like, oh shit!
Yeah,
Oh man, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I get closer and closer. It's probably about midnight now, and there's Meg's hole in front of me. And I mean, all I did was literally pick up my bike, so my flashlight could shine for gators. See no eyes flashing back at me, so I feel I'm safe. And I have no idea how deep this thing is, so I just start pushing my bike through. It was about like, it was exactly chamois level, thank you.
Oh man.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm pushing through, and eventually I'm realizing that I got to pick my bike up a bit,
Yeah.
I pick it up, I get to the other side, not really a big deal.
Right.
My battery in my phone's down to 10. I did that on purpose because I was just going to plug into my charger that had 100%. The only thing I can deduce is that when I was going through Meg's hole, I think maybe one of my wires was hanging down and it got wet. I plugged it into the phone and nothing.
No go.
Nothing. I was like, oh, shit.
Oh.
And then I just kind of had to come to peace with the fact that my phone's going to die. My navigation's going to die out here in the green swamp at the middle of the night. But I had this I'm not getting stopped attitude. So I memorized, I took a look at the picture. I tried to memorize the way out. There's ATV trails that's going like this.
Yeah.
And eventually it dies. It's like 12:30 at night. I'm just pushing the bike, riding the bike, clicking away the night. It's just me, my light, my bike, and the green swamp. I just looking for tire tracks.
Yeah.
And they take me to this section, I come across this 100-foot long thing of body of water, in the trail. And I'm like, I can't see to the left. I can't really see to the right. I'm like, what the hell? I had no idea how deep it was. I had no idea how long it was. It was further than my light could see. So me being me, I'm stubborn. I turn around. I was like, maybe I can get around it. And I went on another path. Right away I noticed I was fooling myself. There's no bike trails, no bike tracks at all. I'm like, yo, man, I gotta stop. Stop this 24-hour fantasy.
Okay.
Take care of yourself. I was like, you know what? The best thing to do is bed down. So I just found a little cubby. I bed it down. I got 3 hours of sleep. I probably got to bed around 1:30ish. I broke camp at 5:30 so I can be ready for daylight.
Yeah.
I followed bike tracks and the sound of cars in the distance. I got around that 100-foot john, kept on following bike tracks, cars getting closer, bike tracks, cars getting closer. Boom, come out on the street. I'm like the happiest guy in the world. I made it over to the Circle K or whatever gas station.
Yeah.
Charged everything up, got new this, that, and the third, got everything ready. Now it's day 4. That day I had the Pyrenees and the swamp.
Oh, that's true.
So that was probably the hardest day, but it was the most fulfilling day, and maybe that's how it works. Now day 4 for me, and where my mindset was, I got 100 miles to go. Let's do it. Alrighty, I think you can see me on this phone. Last night, whew, I was gonna go all the way. Probably glad I didn't. Meg's hole soaked my charger a bit or something, I don't know. Lost my navigation and got it down to Green Swamp, which was shady. Definitely wasn't Philly anymore.
Having only the biological minimum amount of sleep needed was going to have to be enough to finish today so I could hit my 4-day goal. I'm going to do it, and truthfully, I got a little choked up just thinking about how grateful I am to be here right now. One thing though, I decided to bypass the 25 miles of single track that make up the Croom trails. The reality is 25 miles of single track is a typical weekend plan. To squeeze that inside of a back-to-back century would be a pretty big undertaking. I did a lot already, 260 miles, survived the swamp, only a few hours of sleep. By skipping the single track, it would pretty much guarantee me getting done today, and that would still be an incredible accomplishment. As I rode on, I felt good, but became a bit unsettled about skipping Croom. If I skipped Croom, I really wouldn't be doing the entire Huracan. And plus, I'm a mountain biker, and single track is where it's at. About 15 miles from today's start is when I pulled up to a big white sign with a detailed map of the Croom single track. The proverbial fork in the road presented itself before me. The straight, flat, paved trail to my right, or the off-road single track to my left. Robert Frost would be proud. I chose the path less traveled, knowing it would make all the difference. The first third of the Croom trails was everything I love about mountain biking. Smooth, winding trails coupled with new and beautiful sights. I was extremely grateful to be where I was at the moment. I talked to myself out loud, naming all the people I am thankful for. Tears came down my cheeks as I twisted and turned through the woods. I was going to do the whole damn thing, just like I worked so hard for. I began to feel the emotion of accomplishing a well-earned goal. It was happening. I was doing this, and I was as happy as could be. Then came the middle third of the Croom trails, and this I didn't expect. What an awesome job whoever built these trails did. This section was a straight-up, all-natural bike park. The single track rose up, dipped down, and circled around, creating an exhilarating flow. My only problem was that I was over 300 miles into a ride with a fully loaded bike. The many steep punches made for a bit of climbing, which fully loaded was daunting. Once again, the varying terrain, though tough, was energizing. An added cool visual feature was the way the trail builders delineated each flow track with deer skeletons adorned with bike parts around their necks. Each bony structure presenting the names of each section, such as Moonshine or Hooch. I really want to come back here one day with a sleekened mountain bike and hit this masterpiece up again. The last third of the Croom returned to nice flat pine-covered trails with the usual sand here and there. I moseyed on until I dipped out of the woods, and once again, the energizing feeling of accomplishment washed over me. I trudged along road and trail to the Lake Lindsay Mall, where I ate a tremendous and filling burger. I met a rider who was thinking about staying overnight at Inverness, about 34 miles out from the finish, so he could hit the last stretch with fresh legs. Not the worst idea, I thought. I hopped back on my trek and hit some roads until I pulled into Citrus Wildlife Management Area. This was perfection back here. The hard-packed dirt roads and state forest tree coverage reminded me of the gravel roads near State College, PA. The weather was cool and fantastic, much better than the 10 degrees back in southeastern PA. Exiting the state forest roads, I approached Inverness and thought about the fresh leg strategy of getting a hotel. The notion lasted a half second before scoffing at the idea.
Man, I cleared Croom in 3 hours.
Nice.
I flowed through there. I was thinking about y'all.
Yep.
I was just like, and I was by myself. Didn't see anyone else the whole morning.
Yeah.
I popped out at the end. I'm like, damn, because I'd said, if I can get that done before 12:30, that's kind of, and I did. It was like 12:35. I popped out the other side, and I was just like, this is big, people. I got on my bike to start pedaling. I probably put 2 hard pedal strokes and poof, I hear my back tire blow out. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I got this. It's like, whatever.
No.
I laid the bike down. I look and I could see sealant coming out my sidewall, like where the bead is. And still, I'm like, whatever. I hit it with the CO2. CO2 goes flying out the bead. I'm like, I had my bike from that point to the point it was ready to ride again in 38 minutes. I took all my bags off, flipped it upside down, pulled my rear wheel off, put the tire off, put a tubolito in, reset the tire, mounted the tire back on, put all my bags back on, had it flipped and ready to go about 38 minutes. And I'm just like, look at this. Look at this. But again, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I did notice, though, that the tire wouldn't reseat. It was like goose-egged out on the sidewall there where the bead is on the wheel. And I'm like, if I could sit my fat ass up there, plus the weight of the rack and the gear and my backpack, I'm like, So I walked it a little while to see if it would hold on the road, and I get on and ride, and it's holding me, but I could tell like it would be kind of this wobble to it.
Oh, so it was fixed, but it wasn't fixed.
No, it was not. It was the tire bead was like bulged. It was holding right on the top of the wheel rim, right? And I pull into Lake Lindsay, and it's doing the whoa on the back, and the wheel was true. I could see that, but the tire that's not good.
Yeah.
And they said
the 3 words you don't want to hear when you're on a bikepacking trail.
And I thought, I'm like, Mike said he'd be done today, and he's got his truck, and he said, call if you need anything.
Chris, for lack of a better term, saved you on day 1.
Yep.
I heard about favor. You on day 5, return the favor. Go ahead.
Yeah. He it was so funny. I'm probably maybe an hour from the campground, and he's calling me, which I thought was weird. I was like, and he's at the Lake Lindsay store with a flat tire, and I don't think anybody turned to, which was cool. And he's like, hey man, I'm here and my sidewall's busted and this and that. And I said, all right, when I finish, just give me. I said, I'm probably an hour from the parking lot, I hope. And
then in the meantime, I looked up on Google. He's like, well, there's a bike shop. It's about 15 miles away in Brooksville. I said, all right. So I called them, Crankworks, shout out to you. And I said, hey, I think it was Matt. Hey, my name's Chris. I'm out on this bike trip, and my rear tire is FUBAR. I said, I got a tube in it, but it's not I'm not risking it out in the middle. I said, you think you can help me out? He's like, are you doing the Huracan? I said, yeah. He's like, I had to bail Saturday night. I got some kind of stomach virus. He's like, I got you. If you can get here, I'll hook you up and we'll get you rolling again.
So you literally pulled in, went to your truck, threw your bike in the back of the truck, started the truck, and took off to go get Chris.
Yes.
You're the man, dude.
Yep. And picked him up, and we nabbed where the new closest bike shop was, took it in, dropped him off. And the guy was super cool, super attentive. He knew exactly what Chris was doing, so he tried to get him going as soon as possible. We loaded Chris back up. I took him back to Lake Lindsay store where he had stopped and shook his hand, gave him a hug because he's
and then Mike took me back to Lake Lindsay Mall, and he's like, well, what's your plan? I said, I'm just gonna ride. I don't know. It was 5:30 by that point.
Yeah.
So it was
like, plan? We don't need no stinking plan.
I mean, and I was feeling so good.
I cruised into the last respite on the route and bumped into 2 fellow riders fueling up on Coke and Snickers bars. Now dark, the 2 riders took off, and I followed shortly behind, eventually passing them at a fence they were hopping over. Then it was a final dip into the woods, beginning a 13-mile single-track slog to Shangri-La. I look at my phone battery, and it's already down to 20%. I was going to lose my nav again. I slowed down a bit and asked to group up with the other riders, Dave and Mike from Ohio, who had no problem with my company. This is the bikepacking universe. Strangers in the same spot at the same moment for the same reason. It's through these random connections that I started, and it's through these incidental connections I was going to finish. This is where the ultimate benefits of bikepacking lay, in the people you meet. Solo works for me and many others, but I'm sure that only goes for so long. The graciousness of humanity is a valuable gift that cannot be wasted on these types of trips. The way the Huracan has been playing out was exactly how it was supposed to be. My unintentional ghost trail gang got me through the nervous craziness of the early stages of this course, and doing it with them gave me the confidence to fly solo. Dave joining me for the ride down and being a sounding board for all things Huracan helped me mentally get ready for this challenge. And it was Dave who was going to be there for me at the end, vehicle ready, hotel booked, and a bag of chips in hand. Todd, Chris, Sam, Mike, and Dave all took footage of their rides and shared it with me to make this video. Mike and Dave from Ohio guided me through the final single track as my light dimmed and my nav did again die. The three of us meandered through the single track at now about 9:30 p.m., and by 10, we hit the aptly named Earn and Burn section. Damn it, Carlos, I've already earned and definitely have already burned. But Carlos wasn't going to make this easy for us. To quote him, if this was easy, everyone would be bikepacking instead of playing pickleball. We finally crossed back onto the trail we initially all started this challenge on. The pavilion lights were in sight. There was no talking now, just the sound of free hubs clicking away the last moments of the Huracan 300. Closer and closer we crept to the finish until the three of us cruised into the same pavilion the race party was held under. We dropped our bikes and laid down on the picnic tables back in Shangri-La. Then again, perhaps I was in Shangri-La this whole ride. The entire Huracan 300 was a faraway haven and a utopian cycling experience allowing me to enter a state of bliss. A huge shout out to Dave and Mike, and I apologize for not sticking around to finish longer, but I was cooked. I slowly rolled back to Dave, who was waiting in the parking lot.
After 4 days, powering through the Huracan 370 miles.
Got my boy?
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Farnick.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Dang. Yeah, that's a fucking rider.
Oh, my God, dude. I'm not good right now. I'm not good.
Nah.
Dehydrated. That last 13 miles of single track was actually awesome single track. Awesome riding, but...
Yeah, after all that, that'll kick your ass. Killer.
It all started with that little baby in the king cake. I knew it was going to work out. But then again, it all started as a thought in October 23. Then it became a goal in July 24, until it became a reality as we hit the road in January 25. There are many parts that make up these types of challenges. The idea, the plan, the sacrifice, the effort, the travel, the start, the struggle, the finish, the satisfaction. It's all fun and it's all daunting, and it's all worth it. I often wondered if other people go through the same struggles as I do when doing this type of shit. I'm going to stop wondering that. We all have to balance out life when it comes to endeavors like this. As different as our livelihoods may be, the trials and tribulations of these challenges become a common denominator. Some of us go fast, some of us party pace it. Some don't finish, some of us go solo, some of us go in groups or yo-yo around, some take the whole route, some cut corners here and there. No one is better or worse or correct or wrong for how they choose their own adventure. But everyone is badass in their own way. Because like Robin says, if you want to be badass, you got to do badass things. And the Huracan 300 is certainly fun and badass. Dave beelined the 16-hour drive home so I can get some sort of recovery going. Reunited with my wonderful family, it was almost time to get back to normal. But there was one more thing to do in order to make this story have the perfect ending. Together amongst friends and family, we all watched the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dominate the Kansas City Chiefs to become Super Bowl 59 champions. Thanks for watching. and I hope to see you soon, preferably on a bike.
What are you taking with you from this? Like what's the, what's happening with you that you're taking with you that you got from this trip,
Probably the thing I've got the most is saddle sores. I've got two. I took them with me.